She was 10 minutes from walking down the aisle, when she heard the father of her unborn child planning to steal everything she owned. Emily Carter stood alone in the marble hallway, one hand resting on her 4-month belly, the other gripping a white bridal bouquet. Hidden inside the flowers was a small blue teddy bear. It was supposed to play her baby's heartbeat later at the reception. Instead, it became her witness. Behind a half-open door, her fiancé Nathan Reed whispered to her sister Claire. "After the wedding, she'll sign whatever I put in front of her," he said. "She's pregnant? Emotional. If I talk about the baby, she'll do what I say." Emily's fingers tightened around the bouquet. Claire laughed softly. "Not nervous. Not guilty. Proud. She still thinks you love her," Claire said. "That's the best part." For a moment, Emily couldn't breathe. The hallway smelled of roses, candle wax, and expensive perfume. Inside the ballroom, 200 guests waited for a beautiful wedding. But Emily had just heard the truth. This was not love. It was a trap. Nathan wanted control of her family company. Her father's legacy. Her shares. Her signature. Even her baby was part of the plan. Emily did not scream. She did not burst through the door. She reached into the blue teddy bear, found the tiny button, and pressed record. The music began in the chapel. Everyone stood. And when Emily stepped into the aisle, she was no longer a bride walking toward marriage. She was a mother walking toward war. And then behind that half-open door, Emily heard the one voice she still trusted after her father died. Her sister. Claire Bennett was not crying. She was not apologizing. She was not even nervous. Her voice floated through the crack in the door like smoke, soft and steady, the way it did when she used to calm Emily during bad nights. Only now that same voice was helping Nathan bury her. Emily stood frozen in the hallway, her veil brushing against her shoulder. The marble wall was cold against her skin. Somewhere beyond the chapel doors, the string quartet kept playing, gentle and beautiful, as if nothing in the world had broken. But something had. Nathan spoke again, low and sharp. "Keep your voice down. People are everywhere." Claire gave a small laugh. "Relax. In a few minutes, she'll be walking toward you like you're still the love of her life." Emily's hand moved to her stomach. The baby shifted softly beneath her palm, just a tiny flutter, but it felt like a warning. She stared at the thin line of light spilling from the room. A room meant for elderly guests to rest. A quiet little space with flowers on the table, crystal glasses, and soft chairs. A perfect place to hide an ugly truth. Nathan continued. "After the ceremony, everything gets easier. Emily will sign the management authorization when we come back from the honeymoon. She's pregnant. She's sensitive. If I talk about the baby's future, she'll do what I say." Every word landed clean. Management authorization. Pregnant. Sensitive. She'll do what I say. Emily did not move. Not because she was weak. Because she was finally understanding. This was not a mistake. This was not a moment of temptation between two selfish people. This was a plan. A plan with steps. A plan with timing. A plan that had studied her heart and decided exactly where to press. Claire's heels clicked softly inside the room. "What if she starts to suspect?" she asked. Nathan scoffed. "She's in love. That's more useful than ignorance." Emily looked at herself in the gold-framed mirror across the hall. A perfect bride stared back at her. White dress. Pearl earrings. Pale lips. One hand on a small rounded belly, but her eyes had changed. They were not shattered. They were going cold. Claire lowered her voice. "Your problem is you always rush. My mother will help. She'll tell Emily signing is about trust. About family. About keeping peace." That hurt more than the affair. Her mother. Emily could almost hear it already. "Don't make a scene. Think of the baby. Families forgive." But standing there with the bouquet trembling in her hand, Emily knew one thing with terrifying clarity. If she opened that door now, they would lie. Nathan would soften his voice. Claire would cry. Her mother would call her emotional. And the truth would disappear. So Emily stayed silent. She pressed the tiny recorder inside the blue teddy bear. And let them keep talking. Nathan's next words took the knife and turned it slowly. "First, the general authorization," he said. "Then the voting package. After that, I used the lakeside house as collateral for the expansion." Emily's breath caught. The lakeside house. Her father's house. The place where he had taught her how to ride a bike in the driveway. The place where he kept old company files in the den and told her, "One day, sweetheart, this will all need someone honest to protect it." He had been gone 18 months. And Nathan was already planning to mortgage his memory. Claire's voice came softer now, almost curious. "And once she's tied to the debt." Nathan did not hesitate. "She won't be able to walk away." Emily closed her eyes for half a second. Not because she wanted to disappear. Because she needed to stay standing. The truth was spreading through her like ice water. This was never only about Claire. Never only about secret hotel rooms, stolen kisses, or a sister who had smiled across Thanksgiving dinners while hiding a knife behind her back. This was bigger, cleaner, colder. Nathan wanted her company, her stock, her voting power, her father's protected trusts. He wanted every signature her grief had left vulnerable, and every document her pregnancy made him think she would sign without reading. And Claire knew all of it. She was not the other woman. She was a partner. Inside the room, a glass touched wood with a soft click. Claire asked the question Emily had been afraid to hear. And the baby? Silence. For one terrible second, Emily heard only the distant music, the rustle of guests settling into pews, and the faint beat of her own blood in her ears. Then Nathan answered. The baby is useful for now. As long as she believes I'm committed to the family, she won't challenge anything. Emily's hand pressed harder against her stomach. The small life inside her shifted again, gentle and innocent, unaware that his own father had just reduced him to a tool. Nathan continued, colder now. If she gets difficult after the birth, a good lawyer can do plenty with a woman who looks emotionally unstable. That sentence changed her. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But completely. The old Emily, the woman who believed love could explain distance, who believed family could survive anything, who believed silence kept peace, fell away right there in the hallway. In her place stood a mother. A daughter. A woman who finally understood the shape of the trap. If she cried, they would use it. If she screamed, they would call her unstable. If she accused them without proof, they would bury her under concerned sympathy and polished lies. Nathan would hold her hands in front of everyone and say she was overwhelmed. Claire would weep into a tissue. Her mother would whisper, please Emily. Not today. And 200 guests would remember the bride who broke down before the ceremony. Not the criminals who pushed her there. So Emily did the hardest thing she had ever done. She stayed quiet. She kept recording. And behind the flowers, the blue teddy bear listened to every word. Nathan kept talking, and with every sentence, Emily saw the whole machine behind the smile. The company is the door, he said. The real money is behind her signature. Emily's fingers tightened around the stems of the bouquet. Her father's company was not just a business. Carter Foods had started in one small warehouse outside Cleveland, with her father driving delivery trucks before sunrise and doing payroll at midnight. He had built it slowly. Honestly. One grocery account at a time. When he died, he left Emily control. Not because she was the oldest. Not because she was the only child. Because he trusted her. And now Nathan wanted to turn that trust into a weapon. Claire's voice slipped through the door again. She still has the protected accounts. Yes, Nathan said. Trust funds. Voting shares. The board can't move without her approval. But once she signs the authorization, I can operate on her behalf. Operate on her behalf. The words sounded clean. Legal. Respectable. That made them even uglier. Emily pictured Nathan sitting beside her on the honeymoon, smiling over breakfast, sliding papers across a hotel table. He would kiss her forehead. He would mention the baby. He would say the future needed planning. He would tell her grief had exhausted her and that he only wanted to help. And she would have signed. The thought made her stomach turn. Inside the room, Nathan's voice grew more confident, as if he were already standing over everything her father had built. After that, I move the voting package. Then I push the expansion loan through. The lakeside house becomes collateral. If the board hesitates, I remind them Emily approved it. Claire gave a low laugh. And if Emily asks questions? She won't, Nathan said. Not at first. She doesn't understand how pressure works. By the time she does, the debt will already be tied to her name. Emily looked down at her wedding dress. White silk, pearl buttons. A dress chosen for love. Now it felt like a costume they had put on her for the final act of a robbery. The chapel music swelled beyond the doors. Guests were waiting. Her mother was probably smiling in the front row, proud that her daughter was marrying a man everyone called perfect. The flowers were arranged, the candles were lit. The photographers were ready to capture a fairy tale. But behind one half-open door, the fairy tale had become evidence. Nathan was not trying to marry her. He was trying to gain access. To her company. To her father's legacy. To the voting rights that protected hundreds of workers. To the house where her father's old coffee mug still sat in the kitchen cabinet. To the future of a child who had not even taken his first breath. Emily's eyes burned, but she did not let the tears fall. Tears would blur the moment. And she needed to see clearly. Claire said, "You really think she'll sign everything?" Nathan answered without hesitation. "She loves me. She trusts her family. That's why this works." That was the last piece. Not greed alone. Not betrayal alone. They were counting on her goodness. Her love. Her loyalty. Her need to keep peace. Emily slowly lifted the blue teddy bear closer to her chest. The recorder was still running. And for the first time since she heard Nathan's voice behind that door, Emily almost smiled. Because he was right about one thing, she did trust family. Just not the family standing in that room. Claire's next words were so quiet, Emily almost missed them. 3 years, Nathan. The hallway seemed to shrink around Emily. 3 years? Claire let out a breath sharp and bitter. 3 years of hiding. 3 years of smiling at her across dinner tables. 3 years of pretending I was happy for her while she walked around wearing your ring. I am not waiting anymore. Emily's fingers went numb around the bouquet. 3 years was not one mistake. 3 years was Christmas mornings. Birthday candles. Hospital visits after her father got sick. Late-night phone calls. When Emily cried because Nathan had grown distant and she didn't know why. And Claire had been there for all of it. Claire had sat on Emily's couch in sweatpants holding a mug of tea saying, "Men get scared when things get serious. Give him time." Claire had hugged her at the funeral. Claire had fixed the collar of her black dress. Claire had whispered, "Dad would want you to keep going." All while waiting for the right moment to take her place. Emily looked toward the chapel doors. The music continued soft and patient. Somewhere inside guests were probably checking their watches, smiling politely waiting for the bride to appear. They had no idea a life was ending in the hallway. Not a physical life. Something quieter. The life where Emily believed her sister was safe. Inside the room, Nathan sounded irritated. "The wedding is the entrance, Claire. Not the prize." "No," Claire said. "The prize is control." Those words landed harder than the rest. Because they were not spoken like jealousy. They were spoken like business. Emily could almost see Claire's face. Calm. Beautiful. Perfectly made up. The same face that had leaned close that morning and said, "You look stunning. Like Dad is watching." Emily's throat tightened. Her father. Even his memory had been used. Claire continued, "Carter Foods is the window display. The real money is behind her signatures, her trusts, and everything your future father-in-law locked away before he died." For the first time, Emily felt the pain become organized. Not smaller. Sharper. Her sister had not fallen in love with Nathan by accident. She had studied Emily's weaknesses. Her loyalty. Her grief. Her desire to keep the family together after their father died. Claire knew exactly where Emily would bend. And Nathan knew exactly how to press. The betrayal was no longer a storm. It was a map. Every dinner invitation. Every forced smile. Every time Claire asked, "Are you sure Nathan is treating you right?" was not concern. It was research. Emily slowly pulled the bouquet closer to her chest. The blue teddy bear rested between the flowers, soft and innocent, holding a sound that could destroy them. Her baby's heartbeat was still hidden inside it. So was their confession. A strange calm settled over her. She could still feel the wound. Deep. Fresh. Bleeding. But beneath it, something stronger stood up. Claire had spent 3 years pretending to be a sister. Nathan had spent 3 years pretending to be a man worthy of her future. They thought patience made them powerful. They thought silence meant Emily was blind. They thought love made her easy to control. But they had forgotten one thing. A woman can forgive a wound. A mother does not forgive a threat. Emily lifted her chin. The chapel doors waited, and so did 200 witnesses. Then Nathan said the words Emily would never forget. "The baby keeps her quiet." For 1 second the whole hallway disappeared. The roses. The candles. The wedding music. Even Claire's voice faded into the distance. All Emily could feel was the small life beneath her hand. Her child. Their child. A baby who had not yet seen daylight. A baby who already had a tiny heartbeat recorded inside a blue teddy bear. A baby Emily had planned to introduce to the family with tears, laughter, and soft applause after dinner. Nathan had looked at that same child and seen a leash. Claire asked, almost bored, "You really think that will be enough?" Nathan answered like a man discussing a business tool. "Of course. She wants a family. She wants stability. She lost her father. She's scared. If I act devoted, she'll cling to that. The baby makes her easier to guide." Emily's lips parted but no sound came out. Easier to guide. He did not say protect. He did not say love. He did not say our child. He spoke as if the baby were a line in a contract. A pressure point. Something soft he could press until Emily gave him what he wanted. Her hand spread across her belly. The baby moved again, barely there, like a whisper under her skin. And suddenly Emily remembered the night she had told Nathan she was pregnant. He had held her so carefully. He had kissed her forehead. He had said, "This is the best thing that ever happened to us." She had believed him. She had stood in the bathroom with the little test in her trembling hand and cried because she thought her broken family was being rebuilt. Now she understood. Nathan had not seen a miracle. He had seen an opening. Inside the room, Claire sighed. What happens after the baby is born? Nathan paused. Emily could hear him shifting, maybe straightening his cufflinks, maybe checking the perfect suit he planned to wear while lying in front of God and everyone she loved. "We deal with that later," he said. "If she becomes difficult, we document it. Stress. Mood swings. Postpartum instability. A lawyer can shape that any way we need." Emily's knees weakened. Not because she was afraid for herself. Because she finally saw how far he was willing to go. He was not just planning to steal from her. He was preparing to make her look unfit, unstable, too emotional. A problem. And if he had to use her own child to do it, he would. Claire's voice turned colder. "She'll never fight you if she thinks fighting hurts the baby." Nathan gave a quiet laugh. "Exactly." That laugh killed the last piece of love in her. Emily looked down at the blue teddy bear tucked inside the bouquet. Earlier that morning, she had pressed it against her stomach and smiled, imagining the room going silent when the heartbeat played. Now the bear carried something else. Not innocence. Proof. Her thumb brushed the soft fabric. For the first time, Emily did not feel like a bride. She felt like a mother standing between wolves and her child. And no one was going to move her. Not Nathan. Not Claire. Not her mother. Not the shame of a ruined wedding. Emily lifted her eyes toward the chapel doors. The guests were waiting for vows. But they were about to hear a confession. Claire's next sentence did something Nathan's cruelty had not done. It made Emily feel small again. "My mother will handle her," Claire said. Emily's breath stopped. "Not our mother? My mother?" As if Emily had already been pushed out of the family picture. Nathan's voice softened with satisfaction. "She still listens to Margaret." Claire laughed under her breath. "She listens when Mom talks about family. She always has. All Mom has to say is that signing those papers proves trust. That it keeps things peaceful. That Dad would have wanted everyone together." Emily's hand slid from her belly to the wall. Her knees did not give out, but something inside her did. Margaret Carter, her mother, was sitting in the front row right now. A cream-colored dress. Pearl necklace. A folded handkerchief in her lap. The same woman who had kissed Emily's forehead that morning and whispered, "Your father would be so proud." Emily could see her clearly. Smiling for the guests. Dabbing at tears. Playing the perfect mother of the bride. And all this time she was supposed to be part of the pressure. Maybe Margaret did not know everything. Maybe she had not heard Nathan speak about debt and lawyers and control. But she knew enough. Enough to push. Enough to ask Emily to be quiet. Enough to turn betrayal into duty. Claire continued, each word cutting deeper. "Emily hates conflict. She always has. If Mom tells her not to embarrass the family, she'll fold. She'll cry maybe. But she'll fold." Nathan gave a short pleased sound. "She still needs approval that badly." "She needs peace," Claire said. "That's better. People who need peace will surrender almost anything to keep it." Emily closed her eyes. Suddenly she was 12 years old again, standing in the kitchen after Claire broke a vase and blamed her. "Just apologize," Margaret had whispered. "It's not worth making a scene." She was 19 again, swallowing tears after Claire ruined her graduation dinner with a cruel joke. "Let it go," her mother had said. "Your sister is sensitive." She was standing beside her father's hospital bed, exhausted, heartbroken, while Margaret told her to be strong for everyone else. Always peace. Always duty. Always Emily carrying the burden so the family could look clean from the outside. Now Nathan and Claire were using the oldest wound in the house. Not the company. Not the wedding. Not even the baby. Her mother. Emily opened her eyes. Across the hall, the mirror showed her face again. The bride was still there. The veil. The dress. The pale lips. But the daughter was leaving. The little girl who waited for her mother to choose her. The woman who softened her voice so others would not feel guilty. The bride who thought family meant safety. All of them stood in that hallway for one last second. Then they were gone. Inside the room, Nathan said, "Good. After the honeymoon, we start with the authorization." Claire answered, "And if she hesitates, Mom will remind her what happens when a daughter breaks her family apart." Emily's thumb brushed the blue teddy bear. The recorder kept running. Her baby was silent beneath her hand now, as if listening too. And Emily finally understood the whole trap. Nathan would steal. Claire would smile. Margaret would bless it in the name of family. But not today. Today Emily would not protect their image. Today she would protect her child. And if peace required her silence, then peace was over. Emily's hand was still on the wall when the old version of her almost moved. Almost. That version wanted to push the door open. She wanted to see Nathan's face change when he realized she had heard everything. She wanted to watch Claire's perfect smile fall apart. She wanted to scream so loudly that every guest in the chapel would turn their head. But Emily knew what would happen. Nathan would recover first. He always did. He would step toward her slowly, palms open, voice gentle, eyes full of fake concern. "Emily, sweetheart, you misunderstood." Claire would cry next. Not because she was sorry. Because tears had always been her safest weapon. She would grab Emily's hands and say, "You're upset. You're scared, you're hearing things wrong." And then Margaret would come. Her mother would sweep down the hallway in pearls and perfume, holding that folded handkerchief like a flag of surrender. "Not here," she would whisper. "Not today. Think of the baby. Think of the guests. Think of your father." Emily could hear it before it happened. The whole trap was already built. If she confronted them in that hallway, they would turn her pain into panic, they would turn her truth into hormones. They would make her look like a trembling bride who had broken under the pressure. No. Not this time. Emily pulled her hand away from the wall. Slowly. Carefully. Her breathing steadied. The hallway still smelled like roses and wax, but now the sweetness felt false, like perfume sprayed over smoke. The music from the chapel drifted toward her, soft and elegant, waiting for the bride who was supposed to walk into a lie. She looked down at the blue teddy bear tucked between the white flowers. So small. So innocent. Earlier, she had imagined holding it up at the reception while the room went quiet. She had imagined Nathan smiling beside her as their baby's heartbeat filled the speakers. She had imagined her mother crying, Claire hugging her, guests wiping their eyes. That dream was gone now. But the bear still had a purpose. Emily touched the hidden seam with one finger. The recorder was still running. Every word. Every laugh. Every plan. Every ugly sentence about her baby, her company, her father's legacy, and her silence. For the first time, proof was breathing in her hands. Inside the room, Nathan said something about timing. Claire answered with confidence. They had no idea the quiet woman outside the door had already stopped being their victim. Emily did not cry. She did not knock. She did not beg for an explanation from people who had already explained themselves perfectly. Instead, she reached into the small satin pocket hidden in her dress and pulled out her phone. Her fingers did not shake now. She opened her messages. First, she texted Michael Grant, her father's longtime attorney, "Come to the front left row. Bring the gray folder. Do not ask questions." Then she texted Anna Wells, her best friend and the person handling sound for the reception. "Stay by the audio booth. No one touches my phone except you." Last, she texted Robert Carter, her uncle and acting chairman of the company board. "If Nathan goes near a microphone, stop him." 3 messages. 3 witnesses. 3 locks turning. Emily put the phone away. Then she fixed her veil, lifted her bouquet, and wiped away a tear that had never fallen. The door opened. And Emily was ready. The door opened and Claire stepped out first. Her pale blue dress caught the hallway lights, soft and harmless, like she had not just helped design the collapse of her own sister's life. Her face had already changed. The sharpness was gone. The pride was gone. In its place was concern. Perfect concern. "Emily," Claire said, stopping for half a heartbeat. "There you are. Everyone's looking for you." Emily looked at her. Really looked. Not at the sister who braided her hair when they were little. Not at the woman who held her hand at their father's funeral. Not at the aunt who had touched Emily's belly last week and whispered, "I can't wait to meet him." She looked at the woman who had just laughed about using that baby as leverage. Claire smiled gently. "Were you crying from nerves?" Emily did not answer. Behind the white roses, the blue teddy bear rested against her palm. Its tiny body was almost weightless, but now it felt heavier than the bouquet, heavier than the dress, heavier than the whole wedding waiting beyond the chapel doors. Because inside that bear was the truth. Nathan came out next. His black suit was flawless. His tie was straight. His smile arrived before his eyes did, the same smooth smile he used with investors, church elders, and older women at charity dinners. "Emily," he said, stepping toward her. "You disappeared." She watched his hand reach for her arm. She moved back before he touched her. Just 1 inch. Enough. Nathan noticed. Claire noticed too. But neither of them knew why. Emily lifted the bouquet slightly, hiding the blue teddy bear deeper between the flowers. The recorder was still tucked beneath the seam, still holding their voices, their plan, their confidence. The same bear that was supposed to play her baby's heartbeat. That was what made it almost unbearable. She had bought it 3 weeks earlier from a small baby shop downtown. She had chosen the blue one because Nathan once said he hoped their child would have her father's eyes. She had taken it home, sat on the edge of her bed, and recorded the heartbeat from her last doctor's appointment. A tiny sound. Fast. Alive. She had planned the moment perfectly. Dinner would pause. The lights would dim. She would stand beside Nathan, place the teddy bear near the microphone, and let everyone hear the life growing inside her. People would cry. Her mother would press a hand to her chest. Claire would run to hug her. Nathan would kiss her forehead. That was the story Emily believed. But now the bear carried another sound. Nathan saying she would do what he wanted. Claire saying Emily always folded for family. The plan to take her company, the plan to use the baby, the plan to make her look unstable if she fought back. A heartbeat and a confession, both hidden in the same soft blue toy. Nathan's voice lowered. Are you okay? Emily met his eyes. For one terrible second she wanted to say it. I heard you? But she did not. Not yet. She only said I found what I needed. Nathan's smile flickered. Claire's face tightened. Far inside the chapel the wedding march began. Every guest stood. Emily turned toward the doors, bouquet in hand, blue teddy bear pressed against the flowers. No one in that room knew it yet. But the smallest thing in her hands was about to become the loudest voice in the wedding. The chapel doors opened and the room rose like a single breath. 200 faces turned toward Emily. Friends. Relatives. Board members. Neighbors who had watched her grow up. People who had come to see vows, candles, flowers, and a happy ending. Emily saw all of them. But she heard only one sentence inside her head. Evidence first. Exposure second. Destruction last. Her father had taught her that. Not in those exact words. He used to say, when people try to take what is yours, don't swing in anger. Stand where the truth can see you. At the time she thought he meant business. Now she knew he meant life. The wedding march filled the chapel. Soft organ notes rolled over the rows of dark wooden pews. White flowers lined the aisle. Phones lifted. Guests smiled. A few women pressed tissues under their eyes before Emily had even taken her first step. They thought they were witnessing love. Emily stepped forward. Slow. Steady. The blue teddy bear brushed against the roses in her bouquet. With every step it tapped softly against the stems. Tap. 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 Like a tiny clock counting down. Nathan waited at the altar wearing the face of a man who believed he had already won. His shoulders were relaxed. His smile was warm. His eyes followed her like she was a document walking toward his signature. Emily did not look away. Claire moved to her place near the front, smoothing her dress, playing the devoted sister. Her expression was careful now. Too careful. She kept glancing at the bouquet, then back at Emily's face. Emily gave her nothing. No accusation. No tears. No warning. That was the hardest part. Every inch of her wanted justice now. She wanted the room to hear what she had heard. She wanted Margaret to turn pale. She wanted Nathan's mask to crack. She wanted Claire's perfect little act to burn in front of everyone. But pain was loud. Precision was quiet. So Emily kept walking. In the first row, Michael Grant had taken his seat on the left side just as she had asked. The gray folder rested across his lap. His eyes met hers, once sharp and alert. Anna stood near the audio booth, one hand on the soundboard, the other near her phone. Robert Carter stood beside the aisle with his jaw tight, watching Nathan like a man guarding a locked door. 3 messages. 3 anchors. Emily reached the front of the chapel. Nathan extended his hand. She looked at it. For one second, the room seemed to lean forward. Then Emily placed her bouquet in her left arm and took his hand with her right. His palm was warm. Hers was ice. You're shaking, Nathan whispered. Emily smiled softly. No, she whispered back. I'm ready. His eyes narrowed. Just a little. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But Emily saw it. The first crack. The officiant began speaking, his voice calm and ceremonial. He welcomed the guests. He spoke about love, trust, family, and the sacred promise of marriage. Each word sounded almost cruel. Emily stood still. The recording was safe. The witnesses were in place. The room was quiet. And Nathan, Claire, and Margaret still believed the bride had come to surrender. They did not know the truth. Emily had not walked down that aisle to marry him. She had walked down that aisle to make sure no one could look away. Michael Grant did not move like a guest. He moved like a man who had been waiting for the truth to arrive. From the front left row, he opened the gray folder on his lap just wide enough for Emily to see the top page. Legal seals. Company documents. Her father's old handwritten notes clipped beneath a clean stack of papers. Her father had trusted Michael before almost anyone. After the funeral, when Emily could barely sit through meetings without hearing her father's voice in every empty chair, Michael had been the one who quietly said, "Do not sign anything when you are grieving. Not even for family." Back then, she thought he was being protective. Now she knew he had been warning her. At the altar, the officiant continued. Marriage is built on honesty. Emily almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the word landed like a match near gasoline. Nathan squeezed her hand gently, playing tenderness for the room. His thumb moved over her knuckles in a practiced little circle. To everyone else, it looked loving. To Emily, it felt like a lock being tested. Across the chapel, Anna Wells stood beside the sound booth. Her face had gone pale, but her eyes stayed steady. She did not understand everything yet. Emily could tell. But she understood enough. No one touched the phone. No one touched the audio system. No one touched the truth before Emily was ready. Anna had been Emily's friend since college. She had seen Emily in sweatshirts in hospital hallways and boardrooms in grief. She had watched Nathan become distant and had never pushed too hard. She had simply stayed. That mattered now. In a room filled with people wearing smiles, Anna was the one person who looked like she was ready to fight. Then Emily saw Robert Carter. Her uncle stood near the aisle, one hand resting on the back of a pew. He was not smiling. He was watching Nathan with the cold, still focus of a man who had spent years protecting a company from men who hid greed behind polished language. Robert had stepped in as acting chairman after Emily's father died. Not to take power from her, but to hold the doors shut until she was strong enough to walk through them. Now he understood why she had texted him. If Nathan tried to control the room, Robert would stop him. If Nathan reached for a microphone, Robert would be there first. 3 people. 1 lawyer. 1 friend. 1 uncle. Emily's small army. And none of them had asked her to explain before believing her. That nearly broke her. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Trust. Real trust. The kind Nathan had pretended to offer. The kind Claire had faked for years. The kind Margaret had always made conditional on silence. Emily blinked once slowly and forced the tears back. Not yet. The officiant turned to Nathan. Nathan, do you take Emily? Nathan lifted his chin. His voice came smooth, warm, perfect. I do. A soft sigh moved through the chapel. Emily felt the blue teddy bear against her bouquet. The recorder waited. The heartbeat waited. The truth waited. Then the officiant turned to her. Emily, do you take Nathan? The whole chapel became silent. 200 people leaned into the moment. Emily looked at Nathan. Then at Claire. Then at her mother in the front row gripping her handkerchief. Finally, she looked toward Anna at the sound booth. And in that silence, Emily made the smallest nod. Anna's hand moved. Nathan's smile faded. Because the next voice the chapel heard was not Emily's. It was his. The chapel speakers crackled once. A small, harmless sound. Then Nathan's voice filled the room. After the ceremony, everything gets easier. The words did not sound like a memory. They sounded alive. Close. Real. 200 guests sat frozen in the pews, still facing the altar, still holding their breath for wedding vows that would never come. Nathan's face changed first. The warmth vanished from his eyes. His mouth opened slightly as if he had forgotten how to breathe. His hand tightened around Emily's for half a second, then loosened when he realized she was not holding on to him anymore. The recording continued. Emily will sign the management authorization when we come back from the honeymoon. She's pregnant. She's sensitive. If I talk about the baby's future, she'll do what I say. A woman gasped in the third row. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Claire went still beside the bridesmaids. Her face drained of color so quickly it looked like the light had been pulled out of her skin. Emily did not look at her yet. She watched the room. That beautiful chapel built for promises had become something else now. A courtroom. A stage. A trap. But not for the bride. Nathan took one step toward the sound booth. Robert Carter moved faster. He stepped into the aisle, broad shoulders blocking the path, his voice low but clear. Don't. Nathan stopped. The recording played on. Claire's voice came through next, smooth and cruel. She still thinks you love her. That's the best part. The sound moved through the chapel like a blade. Guests turned toward Claire. The bridesmaid beside her slowly. Claire lifted one trembling hand to her chest, already searching for tears, already building a performance. But the room had heard her laugh. The room had heard the calm in her voice. There was nowhere to hide now. Margaret sat in the front row, white-knuckled around her handkerchief. Her eyes darted from Emily to Claire, from Nathan to the guests, as if trying to find the safest version of the story. But the story no longer belonged to her. Anna stood at the sound booth, pale but steady, one finger resting near the controls. Emily's phone lay connected beside her. The blue teddy bear's recording was pouring through the chapel speakers, turning every flower, every candle, every ribbon into evidence. Nathan finally found his voice. Emily, he said softly, this is not what it sounds like. Emily turned to him. The whole room watched. She did not raise her voice. That is exactly what it sounds like. The silence after that sentence was heavier than shouting. Michael Grant rose from the front row with the gray folder in his hands. He did not rush. He did not need to. Every step he took felt official, final. Nathan looked at him, and for the first time that day fear showed through the perfect suit. Emily lifted the bouquet slightly. The blue teddy bear rested against the roses. It had been meant to share a heartbeat. Instead, it had saved a life before that life was even born. The wedding had been designed to trap Emily in front of everyone she loved. But now every guest, every camera, every whisper in that chapel belonged to the truth. And the trap had closed on them. Nathan still thought he could control the room. That was the mistake that finished him. Even with his own voice echoing through the chapel speakers, even with 200 guests staring at him, even with Robert Carter standing between him and the sound booth, Nathan tried to become the man everyone knew. Calm, reasonable, wounded. He turned toward the guests, lifted both hands slightly and forced a broken little smile. "Everyone please," he said. "Emily is under a lot of stress. She's pregnant. She's overwhelmed. This is a private misunderstanding." There it was. The word he had been saving. Overwhelmed. Emily felt it pass through the chapel like a dirty hand reaching for her throat. A few guests looked at her belly. Not cruelly. Not yet. But uncertain. Confused. Waiting for someone to tell them what kind of story they were watching. Nathan saw that tiny hesitation. And he stepped into it. "My fiancée is emotional today," he continued, softening his voice. "Any bride would be. We should not turn one edited recording into a public spectacle." Claire caught on fast. Of course she did. She pressed a hand to her mouth, tears appearing as if she had rehearsed them in a mirror. "Emily," she whispered loud enough for the first rows to hear. "Please. Don't do this to yourself. Not to us. To yourself." That was how they had always done it. Make her pain look like self-destruction. Make her truth look like embarrassment. Make her silence look like maturity. Margaret rose from the front row, pale and shaking. "Emily," she said, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, maybe we should all step outside, just family." Emily looked at her mother. Just family. The words almost made her laugh. Because family had become the place where the knife was hidden. Nathan took one more step toward Emily, lowering his voice so only the front rows could hear. "Think about the baby," he said. "You don't want this kind of stress right now." Emily stared at him. There it was again. The baby as a leash. The baby as a muzzle. The baby as the reason she was supposed to stand still while they stole her life. For months Nathan had studied her softness and called it weakness. Claire had studied her loyalty and called it stupidity. Margaret had studied her need for peace and called it duty. They believed Emily would break before she embarrassed them. They believed she would choose a clean wedding photo over a dirty truth. They believed a pregnant woman could be managed with whispers, shame, and a hand on her back. But Emily was not breaking. She was becoming clear. She turned toward Anna at the sound booth. "Play the rest." Nathan's face went flat. "No," he said. Robert moved 1 inch closer. "Yes," he said. Anna pressed the button. Claire's voice filled the chapel again. "Emily always folds when someone talks about duty, peace, and not breaking the family." A sound moved through the room. Not a gasp. Something lower. Disgust. Then Nathan's voice followed. "If she gets difficult after the birth, a good lawyer can do plenty with a woman who looks emotionally unstable." That was the moment the room changed sides. Not slowly. All at once. The guests stopped looking at Emily like a fragile bride. They looked at Nathan like a threat. Emily lifted her chin, one hand resting over her baby. Her voice was quiet, but it reached every corner of the chapel. "You were right about one thing, Nathan. I am emotional." She paused. Her eyes moved to Claire. Then to Margaret. Then back to him. "I am emotional enough to protect my child. Strong enough to protect my father's legacy. And done enough to never be silent for this family again." No one moved. No one breathed. Nathan had counted on her fear of scandal. But he had forgotten something. A woman who has already lost everything fake has nothing left to fear from the truth. For a moment nobody in the chapel moved. Not Nathan. Not Claire. Not Margaret. Not even the guests holding their phones in the air, their screens still recording the wedding that had turned into something no one could ever explain as a misunderstanding. Emily stood at the altar in her white dress, one hand over her unborn child, the other holding the bouquet that had carried the truth. Then she did something no one expected. She turned away from Nathan. Not quickly. Not dramatically. She simply turned. The same aisle she had walked down as a bride now waited in front of her again. But this time it was different. The white flowers were still there. The candles still burned. The music had stopped. The guests were still seated on both sides. But Emily was no longer walking toward a man. She was walking away from a lie. Each step was slow. Steady. Clear. The blue teddy bear brushed against the roses, soft and harmless to anyone who did not know what it had just done. Guests leaned back as she passed. Some lowered their phones. Some covered their mouths. Some looked at Nathan with the kind of disgust that cannot be hidden. Emily did not search their faces for pity. She did not need it. At the front row, Margaret reached for her. "Emily, please," she whispered. "Let's talk about this somewhere private." Emily stopped. For one breath she looked down at her mother's hand. That hand had once buttoned her coat before school. That hand had once touched her hair when she was sick. That hand had also taught her to swallow pain for the sake of family peace. Emily gently stepped back. No, she said. Private is where this survived. Margaret's face crumpled, but Emily did not bend. Behind her, Nathan's voice cracked. Emily, don't walk away from me. She turned her head slightly. I'm not walking away from you, she said. I'm walking back to myself. The words landed hard. Claire began crying, now real tears or practiced ones. It no longer mattered. No one rushed to comfort her. Michael Grant stepped beside Emily with the gray folder held against his chest. Emily, he said quietly, your father protected more than they know. That was when Nathan's fear became visible. Not anger. Fear. Because the woman he thought was emotional had evidence. The woman he thought was obedient had witnesses. The woman he thought would hide a scandal had brought the scandal into the light. Emily continued down the aisle. No father walked beside her. No husband waited ahead. But she was not alone. Anna stood at the sound booth, still guarding the recording. Robert stood like a wall between Nathan and the exit. Michael walked one step behind her, carrying the papers her father had left behind. And beneath Emily's hand, her baby moved. Small. Alive. Safe. The chapel doors opened in front of her and sunlight spilled across the marble floor. Emily stepped into it without looking back. 10 minutes earlier, she had been a bride about to give her life to a man who planned to destroy it. Now she was a mother, a daughter, and the only person in that room brave enough to tell the truth out loud. Emily stepped outside and the chapel behind her stayed silent. For the first time that day, no one was telling her to calm down. No one was asking her to protect the family name. No one was calling her emotional. The truth had done what years of pain could not. It had made everyone listen. Michael walked beside her, holding the gray folder like a shield. Anna followed with the phone. Robert stayed behind long enough to make sure Nathan did not touch another microphone. And Emily stood in the sunlight with one hand on her belly. She was not thinking about the ruined flowers, or the canceled dinner, or the guests whispering behind stained glass doors. She was thinking about her baby. That little heartbeat had been meant to bless a wedding. Instead, it exposed a lie. And somehow that made it even more precious. Because love is not proven by beautiful vows. It is proven by protection. By courage. By the moment you stop sacrificing yourself just to keep other people comfortable. The lesson is simple, but it is not easy. Sometimes, the people who say family are only asking for your silence. Sometimes peace is just another word for surrender. And sometimes walking away from the life you planned is the only way to save the life you deserve. So, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to choose truth over keeping the peace? And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. More powerful stories are coming, stories about courage, betrayal, healing, and the quiet strength it takes to finally stand up for yourself.